Morning guys, Dave Canterbury at the Pathfinder School. This tree in front of me is a tulip poplar. It is the #1 tree as far as I'm concerned in the eastern woodlands for everything from fire starting to material usage for cordage, for making things out of. Tulip poplar is just the king tree as far as I'm concerned. Daniel Boone actually had a canoe made from tulip poplar, yellow poplar. What we're going to do today is we're going to harvest this tree. This one is about 4 inches in diameter, a little bit bigger. And we're going to make a quiver with this tree. And then we're going to use a lot of the bark for cordage and things like that for training. But I need a piece about 20 inches long to make a quiver out of, a bark quiver. And I'm going to show you how to harvest the bark off of this thing. And we'll talk about separating it for cordage purposes. And we'll also talk about taking a whole piece of bark to use for a container like a quiver. So stay with me and we'll get started, guys. Okay, I've taken my saw and cut a circle around this tree here, through the bark and into the heartwood. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to measure to make sure I've got it long enough. And I'm going to use my axe handle for that, because I know I've got a forest axe, so it's going to be more than long enough for what I need. My quiver only needs to be really as long as my arrows minus my fletchings. So if you use 5-inch fletchings and you've got an inch sticking behind that where your nock is, that's 6 inches. Arrows are 28 inches, you only need about a 22-inch quiver. This is about a 28-inch handle. So, or 24-inch. So I'm going to go up from that a little ways and just eyeball it. Stay below this. I got a knot right here I'm not real happy about. I'm going to try to go below that knot. That should give me a big enough quiver. Now, once I've got that done, I've got to split this bark. And to do that, I'm going to use my knife. And I'm going to push it down into that wood. And I'm going to hit it with my axe handle, just like this. You can see I've got this taped up. I'm not hitting it with the metal. I'm hitting it with the base of the axe handle, and I'm not hitting it really hard. I'm just tapping it down through there. The important thing here is I've got to get through down to the heartwood for this to work. I'm kind of hitting down at an angle here and going past my target. And this just takes time and patience. You can hear it coming off of there. And if you've gotten down to the heartwood, it should come off pretty easy. And you'll be able to tell when you look down inside there. You'll be able to see. Let me get a camera over here, get a close-up on this for you guys. You should be able to see when I lift this up. You can see this is inner bark here. Below that is heartwood, right in there. That's the heartwood. So I've got to get this bark peeled up all the way around, very gently. Getting as deep in there as I can to the heartwood. I don't want to leave a bunch of inner bark on this thing. So we're just going to take our time and peel it off. Back this camera out. Okay, there it came loose. Now I can just pop it right off of there, leaving the heartwood. And all I have to do is sew this together and plug it, and I have a quiver. So what we'll do is we will cut ourselves a plug off the bottom of this tree. You can use this tree for a plug. And we'll just come up a couple inches and we'll cut that piece out, put that back in the bottom, and that will be the plug for the bottom of our quiver. And we'll just lace it up on the top. Now, while we're here, let's talk about harvesting a little bit of cordage off of this tree, because this inner bark is what you want for cordage. So we'll get a piece of this bark off here and I'll show you what that inner bark looks like. Okay, if we take our knife and just push up in here like this, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about here real quick. Let's just harvest a piece off of here. It's a good 3-4 foot piece right there. We can strip that up a little further. Okay, and that gave us probably a 6-7 foot piece of bark. Let's back this camera up for a minute and we'll talk about cordage. Okay, so we have all of these strands of inner bark that you can see here. These are the cordage material. You can see how whippy that is. You have to separate that from the bark. And to do that, you just kind of have to peel it up as best you can. Sometimes it's going to fray out on you, sometimes it won't. You see there's a pretty good foot and a half long piece there. This piece here, another 2-3 foot piece there. Shorty there. If we can get this thing to where it will actually split away from the fiber, this stuff right here is what we're looking for cordage. And we can split that down into finer fibers, just like that. And if we're really careful with this and we do it with our knife, you know, we can split this stuff pretty long. I'm tearing out pieces now that are a foot and a half. But you could get pieces off of this that were 5-6 feet long to make cordage out of. And once you split that stuff down to finer fibers, like this, where you've got those fibers that are really hair fine, you can make some really, really fine cordage out of this stuff if you need to, for fishing line or whatever. So you got a couple pieces here, you know, pretty simple to make cordage out of it. And this stuff makes good, strong cordage, no question. You're going to get a good, strong piece of cordage out of that. That's not going to break very easy. That stuff is plenty strong all by itself to try to break. For making withies or whatever, if you wanted to out of it. Great, great cordage material. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my piece of bark back on here, because I'm basically going to use this as an anvil to punch my holes for lacing. And I can use my multi-tool or my Swiss Army knife or whatever I have that has an awl on it to drill those holes in there. And I'm going to drill them just a few inches apart. And if I drill it right down into that layer of wood, just like that, I can lift that up and make sure that that hole's all the way through. And just go down through there about every inch or so and drill a hole. Okay, so I've got my holes drilled on both sides. I can take that bark back off of there now. Now I'm going to use one end of this for a plug, and I decided to use the smaller end for the plug, which is down here. So I'm going to cut a piece of that off about 2 inches and put that in the bottom of our quiver for the plug. That'll take care of the bottom. Okay guys, we've got our plug and we've got our bark quiver. Once we get this thing laced up, this should pretty much sit in there friction fit when we're done. Use a piece of rope or whatever for the strap. We'll go back to camp and figure it out. I got some hemp rope back here and some bank line and sail needle. We'll get after this dude.